everyone. You want to buy your neighbor's DNA? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Man, it is a hump day, isn't it? Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong, gang. We've got some good stuff to talk about today. We've got some great people to talk about it with. Let me introduce you to them. First of all, from San Angelo, Texas, West Texas, the soon-to-be maybe data center capital of the world. She's our managing editor, Amanda Razzani. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Good. Happy to be back home after a week in Florida.
Good for you. I hope you enjoyed it. The weather's been beautiful. We haven't had rain in I don't know how long, so it's all good. From Amanda out to Silicon Valley. Looks like a little bit of a different background, or I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm at my parents' house, and we're dealing with some family business. I'll put it that way.
Oh, okay.
So
I think there was a movie
I had
like
to change
that
the
once.
venue in Saratoga, beautiful Saratoga, California. Yes, happy to be here, and it's good to see you all.
Good to see you, John, from Saratoga, California.
Yeah.
And then moving all the way across country, where he's still camped outside Yankee Stadium, waiting for the Boys of Spring. He's our chief content officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike.
All right, I got my brother and son lined up for opening day, so we're ready.
You're ready to rock and roll. Good. All right. So our first article, I hate to poke fun at others' misery or misfortune. And we're not poking fun, but I think we need to discuss it, Mike. 23andMe, which I think most people know, they really helped establish the, check your DNA for your what heritage you are and who your relatives are, and even, what health issues you might has fallen on some hard times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the uproar isn't so much about them on hard times. It's just that a lot of folks didn't check the terms and conditions in the user agreement, and apparently they're finding out that if the company is sold, they can sell your DNA, and nobody knows exactly where that may wind up. And there's some concerns that insurance companies will buy it and use it to deny you insurance based on your DNA, and other folks are concerned that, much like the woolly mammoth, they'll make a clone of you, Alan, and then where will we be?
I don't know if this world can handle two Alan Schimmels, but but that being said, I think, it's not just, look, 23andMe always had the ability to sell your data, right? They claim they took it seriously and did their best, but they could have sold it at any time, and they haven't, because I guess it's not their business model. But in bankruptcy, whoever is the highest bidder on the steps of the court can do with what they want, I guess. What does it really mean to sell your data? Well, Mike, that doomsday scenario of your insurance company, having your data and based upon that making coverage decisions is a nightmare. But they already do have a lot of your medical data, right? They may not have your your DNA sequenced, your whole sequence, but they have all your tests and medical records. So I don't know how much more this is, but this is an interesting case, right? First of all, why the hell this thing went from a $6 billion valuation to penny stock in like a year or something. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, you had a data breach. And it's not often. I've sat out here and said, look, with most data breaches, 6 months later, looking at the stock price, it's a blip, right? It's a blip. But this data breach seemed to have stuck. It seemed to have stuck. And the data breach was a little weird, to say the least. Evidently, the data breach targeted specific ethnic groups, right? It targeted Ashkenazi Jews, Jews of European descent, and Chinese people. And then the next thing you know, you had, and it wasn't even just their DNA information. It was their personal information, their name, their address, to dox them. And the next thing you know, you had like some anti-Semitic kind of dark web stuff saying, hey, you want to buy a list of 300,000 Jews or whatever. And, with some anti-Semitic stuff, and the same kind of thing, I think, for the Chinese stuff. So the fact of the matter was they weren't even using the DNA records. They were using just the PII. But this breach caused a major scare of like, what happens if they do use the records? What else can they do? And this thing grew legs, and where most breaches, play out in the 24-hour news cycle, this one didn't. It stood out there. And then about 6 months later, you had 6 of the independent board members resign en masse from the board here, unhappy with the direction of the company, the steps they were taking around security and business model, and they resigned. The CEO, who's now resigned on the brink of bankruptcy, owns 49% of the outstanding shares. And she wants to take the company private and get it out of the public eye. And I guess the board didn't agree with, she wanted to take it private probably for a pittance. And the board didn't agree with that. And so now they find themselves at this, on the steps of bankruptcy court.
And I think she said she left and was still trying to buy it or something.
Yeah, she left so that she could now bid in bankruptcy as a private individual, though she's an insider with 49% of the shares. But she may be in the best position to buy this thing because controlling 49%, if the other 51% is somewhat fragmented, she only needs to get someone who has 2% for her to have controlling say of, though once it's in bankruptcy court, the bankruptcy trustee will decide who's the best buyer for the assets of the company. And we don't know whether it's going to be a Chapter 7, Chapter 11, or what have you. And, does the company continue on as 23andMe, or are the assets sold off piecemeal, or all of the above? But, this is a cautionary tale where a breach can come back to bite you, number one.
The thing about this breach that I think really hurt them or really damned them is not only did it affect 7 million customers, which is a pretty high number for a company of this size, but it doesn't just affect the people directly who are customers, but their family members. So in some cases, the access to their private data extended to family trees, birth years, geographic locations, that will have traction and will have a sticking point when it's, your sister, your brother, your spouse, your children. You're all in the same boat. You're all dragged down the same way. And I think there's also from a business point of view, this company was burning through cash like crazy. It was almost like a dot-com instant all over again. And I think you mentioned, Alan, that the market value is one time $6 billion. Now I think it's like 50 million. So
I don't even think it's that much.
Yeah, probably less than that now, right? And we have this scramble or a panic among their customers trying to scrub themselves from this. I guess the Washington Post did an interesting column. Jeffrey Fowler did, and he'd had like a dozen readers tell him that the site wasn't working for them, and there were people trying to scrub their information. It just sounds like a mess, top to bottom, and it was inevitable, I guess.
Sure is.
Well, I will
Sure is.
say, when I read the articles, we're all on there on 23andMe. And so my husband went on there and he was able to delete all his data within like 1 minute. It was super easy. So maybe there was a mass amount of people at once trying to do it.
Yeah, there was a rush.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I
Right.
still
Yeah,
need
no,
to. I haven't done it yet, but apparently it's pretty easy now.
So I never did do that. I have some funny family stories about cousins and stuff who did and found unknown relatives.
Yeah, I did. I found an
Did
aunt
you?
and cousins.
Really? Um, but I think another thing, John, to your point, was they didn't handle the breach right. They didn't acknowledge it right away. They didn't do the normal sort of breach protocol. And it's a shame. But I got another question for you. Does this call into question the whole viability of the do-it-yourself genome, DNA? You know, Amanda, both you and your husband did it. I don't know.
They're not the only ones collecting DNA for that purpose, though, right?
Well,
Ancestry.com's got an arm.
Ancestry's probably the biggest one, yeah.
I think they're a unit of the
MyHeritage.
Church of Latter-day Saints, and
Yes.
so all that data is being collected by them as well.
Well, the Mormon Church has a huge genealogy project.
Right. It's not clear to me that the church is reselling that data, but I think we need some regulations about reselling DNA data because it's not quite the same thing as my credit card number.
Well, it's been used to solve a lot of crimes. I've seen so many documentaries where they turn to 23andMe or one of the various other genetic sites to solve crimes and catch the criminals.
Mm-hmm. Well, not to mention the people who discovered that not only do they have relatives they didn't know about, but some of the relatives they do know about aren't relatives. So there you go.
There is that.
Kind of moving, we're going to do a segment later about healthcare and about AI. And this whole kind of cautionary tale about 23andMe just makes me wonder, kind of going forward, if we might see more instances like this involving data and personal information that gets in the wrong hands. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just something to consider in terms of governance.
But I'll give you one better, right? I remember talking to some folks, maybe it was a panel I was on, about, we got to get away from Social Security numbers as a personal identifier, right? At this point, a good chunk of the American public Social Security numbers have been involved in data breaches. So, and Social Security numbers were never meant to be a personal identifier over and above getting into the Social Security system. And one guy I spoke to, he was like with a biometrics company up in Boston. He said that you are going to have like a chip, a DNA chip, where your identity is basically embedded. Your DNA is your identity, for lack of a better way of saying it. Similar to when Clear looks at your iris and stuff like that. And that your DNA would be unique to you and would be the best ID we ever had. And, you get, so the key to it is just being able to have, a DNA chip or whatever you want to call it that could be read instantly to verify it's you. Now, in the age of AI, and I can buy someone's DNA footprint, fingerprint, whatever, that goes out the window. I should be able to clone. I may not be able to clone a human being at this point yet, or maybe I could, but I should be able to clone a DNA identifier if I was using it for a biometric access to a system.
Wouldn't there only be a small amount of people that could be able to do that, though?
Well, no, I think with AI, you just tell the AI to do it.
Right. And then somebody sticks an API in front of it, and now they've got a new business.
It's a new dark web business model. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is interesting. I think we're gonna, you're gonna need to follow the other thing that I've heard is that, sort of the first generation 23andMe basic, who's your half sister, who's your half brother, broadly you're Scottish, Irish, what have you, has given way to today's DNA kind of technology, which can really, go back further into your heritage, give you much more granularity in terms of where you're from, what you have, what your medical propensities or weaknesses, profile is. So that, like a new generation of DNA profiling that's much more in depth. And maybe that does make this business, and 23andMe, I mean, it's a well-known brand in that model. Someone buys it for that and does reinvigorate it with next-gen DNA testing. Maybe it's worth something.
Hey, maybe we'll all discover that we're all related and maybe we'll stop killing each other. That would be good.
So there is a positive impact here. Yeah.
You had to bring politics up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I just feel like when 23andMe first came out, they had really good marketing and it was like the hit thing and everybody was doing it. I did it. My husband did it. A lot of people are doing it. And I feel like I don't hear about it as much anymore. And like the novelty, it was more of a novelty that maybe has kind of lessened over the years. And there's just less people interested in it. I don't know.
I
That
think the
sounds like
key has to be
Facebook. That
health.
kind of sounds like Facebook to me too. Like something catches on, and then the more the people use it, I'm not being too dark about this, but the more people use, they've realized kind of the pitfalls or some of the unintended consequences, like a Twitter use. This happens in tech usage. You see all the benefits, and then you start seeing some of the downsides. And this downside was a little bit severe, though, compared to something else.
Yep. Anyway, look, as I led this off with, I don't wish them ill, and we're not here to gloat over their trouble. I hope they gets figured out, and it is a uniquely modern thing to think about. Hey, I could have my DNA indexed, right? Your parents or your parents' parents, that wouldn't have been a option. So interesting. All right, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to mind the gap, the AI gap. Is there a gender gap in AI? You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back, and as Alan mentioned, we're looking at a study that was put together that tracked who was using Gen AI and almost by socioeconomic and gender, and John here wound up writing a story about it, but it does seem like there are patterns emerging, but are they permanent or temporary is the question, John.
That's a really good question. I think they might be semi-temporary. God, it's not even a concept. And anyway, there was a study done, a survey of 18,000 workers by an organization called Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. There were two professors in particular who worked on this, a University of Chicago economist and a professor at the University of Copenhagen. And they found that high-end users, which tended in their study to be male and higher wage workers, were more likely by a 16% difference than the female or lower income workers to use Chat GPT. So in terms of adoption, men were more likely to do it. And one of their takeaways, and this is something that was discovered earlier and in another study, the 2024 study through Norway's Institute of Economics, they found something like a 10 to 25% difference between men and women using GPT regularly. So the reasons, and again, these are they kind of struggle in a sense to find the main reasons, but they said one of the reasons women were less likely to use ChatGPT was they encountered or were more likely to encounter something called adoption friction, or basically aversion to AI because of a lack of training. So they didn't feel as if they were properly trained and felt as optimistic or as confident in the technology. There was also this idea that the study found that female students use ChatGPT much less or less proficiently writing the prompts, and they're more sensitive to bans on using GPT. In other words, they kind of want to follow the rules and want to make sure that they're properly trained. So they're not going to dive recklessly head on into it. So those are kind of the takeaways. There were other statistics, other numbers that kind of jumped out at me. Um, there was a resistance to use ChatGPT, male or female, due to a lack of training, which is 42%. There's these the existential fears of becoming redundant in a job because of AI. No, is down to less than 9%. So people aren't as afraid of losing their jobs. And some of the professions they mentioned that were less likely or felt less vulnerable included journalism, which I found kind of interesting. Um, so those are kind of the takeaways. And again, it's early, as Mike said. This is a work in progress. There were 2 studies done, though. I'm sure they'll do another one soon. But there aren't enough women in tech to begin with. Women, and I also think women tend to be much more cautious and much more follow the rules and don't jump head straight into a technology they don't quite understand. I sometimes think males will do that recklessly. That's just my personal opinion. But there you have it. There is an AI gap for now, at least.
You mean read the directions? I'm a little surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why in our household, all the banking and all the fine print work is done by my wife, who used to work in a bank, because she catches things that I don't even look at.
Hmm. But let me just get this straight. There's some new technology out there, and more men are using the tech than women using the tech, especially within the tech industry, which, I think we got 20% women at best in the tech industry. It's an 80% male dominated field, as disgusting as that is. And this is news.
Yeah, I was going to say, Alan, I was going to sabotage the studying a little bit because I think, in a sense, they're stating the obvious, but a lot of studies do that. I think what they're trying to do is bring attention to those people who don't know the industry as well as we do, perhaps. But you're right. You're right. This is just what the way tech has been for a long time. It will continue to be the same way when another new tech emerges, and then things will be narrowed in terms of use in terms of ChatGPT, I think. But yeah, I take your point.
I mean,
Amanda,
I'm not surprised.
what's your take on this at the risk of having you represent the entire female population? But when you look at this, what do what jumps out at you?
Well, first of all, to Alan's point, that's exactly right. There's just more men in the technology world. So there are going to be more men using the tech than women. So that makes sense. But I do agree with John. I think that women, a lot more women tend to be more safe and want to follow the rules and feel confident with the technology before jumping in to use it. I myself might not be in that same category because I'm just kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person who just jumps into stuff really quickly because I'm a hands-on person. So I'm going to learn by doing it. But I think a lot of women are going to read the rules and want to learn and be trained on it before feeling comfortable using the technology.
Mhm. And how much do you think that comes down to? There's just more, and I think John alluded to this. There's a little more concern about being held to account for something going wrong versus I sometimes think guys were kind of like, we'll just jump into it and, devil be damned, we'll see how it comes out. And if it's not perfect, we'll take the
Yeah,
heat.
we don't want to get in trouble for screwing something up. So
Yeah, but
You know, um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Alan.
No, you
I was
go.
just gonna. Okay, so what the training thing is interesting to me. So separately, a couple of days ago, I talked to the global innovation officer for Cisco, and his name is Guy, and he was telling me that training has become such an issue within companies like Cisco, which are moving to AI. There's you don't have a choice internally. They're going to start forcing mandatory training for males as well as females because their concern is number one, they're not properly trained, but number two, they don't want to expose themselves to careless mistakes or needless procedures. So that's to me, in a sense, something that both sexes are need to do, and it's still a major issue within companies. The skilling issue. I just want to throw that up because I think that's really important, and I think these companies want to protect themselves as well, right? They don't want to end up eventually they do not want to end up in a situation where there's some sort of self-inflicted wound or something that affects their customers that makes them look bad financially and politically or what have you.
I have a pet theory. My theory is that most of this stuff was written by guys. So therefore, the customer experience leans more towards guys, and therefore it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You know what? I buy into that.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
buy
believe
into
that.
that. Agreed. Agreed. In any event, let's see. I guess we'll monitor it over time and see if this gap, uh, you know, closes up a bit. But, Mike and I are traveling to London next week. So we'll end this one with Mind the Gap. You're watching Techstrong, gang. We'll be back in a minute.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, folks, we're back and we're talking about another one of those instances where AI seems to be making a big difference, and it's in the medical field. And there's more and more of stories showing up where AI is helping to identify diseases faster. And in fact, the World Economic Forum is now calling to make this a higher priority because there's just not enough doctors and medical professionals around the world. And AI kind of fills in what is a real gap and a huge issue that we seem to be encountering. And I know everybody's a little wiggy about AI and worried about their job, but Amanda, does the greater good here outweigh the
Oh,
risk?
absolutely. When you look at, there are so many use cases for AI in the medical field, from discovering drugs more quickly because of how fast it can go through sequences to see which ones work, using it for more accurate brain scans, connecting it with digital twins to test something out before doing it on the actual human body. So, and that's just like three. There's so many. So I feel like absolutely it outweighs any concerns there are about losing jobs. And I don't really think the jobs are going to be lost. I think they're just going to have to skill up and start being able to use AI in their fields.
Yep. This is a sample of one, but every year the neighborhood I grew up in has its own little St. Patrick's Day parade, and everybody who grew up there shows up. And we're at that age now where, everybody kind of has to take inventory of who's missing in the last year, and it's a little sad sometimes. But one of the common themes in all these stories and all these folks is how long it took for them to actually discover what it is that ailed these people. And frequently it turned out to be too late because it was some obscure thing that nobody thought about. And it seems to be a recurring theme. And I don't know if I'm just noticing it because I'm getting older, but Alan, I feel like
You're not coming to me because I'm older, are you? I just want to make this clear right now.
I'm coming to you because you have a lot of friends of a certain age.
And I live in Boca. I might as well be on that 23andMe list. Come on. Okay. Well, so I agree and disagree with you, Mike. I do think that early detection is our best bet against prevention. And I do think that, unfortunately, the way the American healthcare system works, and if you have commercial insurance like we do here at Techstrong, right? All of your preventative yearly checkups, colonoscopies, all of your preventative tests are included in every plan under our health plan, right? So there's no reason why everyone shouldn't be getting these yearly screenings, whether it's mammograms for women, prostate exams for men, or as I said, colonoscopies, or chest X-rays for lung cancer and stuff like that. Because you're right, Mike. Early detection is the key to this. I think this is more of a lifestyle choice for some, where they say, I'll get to it. That colonoscopy, the prep's terrible. I'll wait till next year. And then next year becomes the year after and the year after. So I think the key here is better vigilance of our population to go for these screening tests. Now, that being said, though, what's the biggest, I was going to say pain in the butt about a colonoscopy, but that's too much. Getting an appointment with the doctor. It could take months.
Yes.
It could take months.
Yes.
That's how it is down here. Wouldn't it be great if in AI you could get your appointment, same day, next day? Wouldn't it be great, if the AI looks at the results and, and has the world's medical knowledge at its disposal and gives you your diagnosis, right? May not have the bedside manner that a doctor does, but that may not be a bad thing with some bedside manners that doctors have. So I for one, I'm all for this. I think we need, and the other thing is, look, I do live in Boca where we have a doctor's office every block. And, in California and New York, Mike, we're those are high doctor areas. Amanda, I don't know about San Angelo, how many different doctors and specialists, though Texas overall generally has good, hospitals.
We have pretty good
and
medical
healthcare.
care. Mhm.
Yeah. But there are lots of places, even here in the US, let alone the rest of the world, where, it's a one doctor town.
You know what though? Alan, I'm so I'm in the Bay Area. There are, I don't know, 10 million people here total. And there are a lot of doctors, but it's hard to get an appointment. I have a doctor who I was one of the last people. She's a new general practitioner for me, at least, and she said she had cut off adding any more patients after me. And I remember one incident where I was trying to get it's like some sort of appointment, and they told me it was really hard. First, you physically have to be in the office to talk to them. It's really hard to reach them on the phone. And I was told it would take up to a year, just for something that was basic. So that's why I think in terms of AI in healthcare, it is and I hate using this phrase, but it is a game changer, a lifesaver. We worry about AI, about taking our jobs, but in a sense, it could be saving a lot of people's lives with just like basic appointments, basic like blocking and tackling in terms of preventive medicine, preventive disease control, escalating it to drug discovery at the high end. I think from the gamut from top to bottom is going to change so many things for the better. I really do believe that.
And also for mental health and well-being. I did a interview, this was a long time ago, probably like 6 months ago, about AI already being used for mental health. People could call in and speak to AI for counseling and therapy sessions.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to reduce a lot of the stress because everybody does the same thing, right? You get an ailment and you're like, well, let me go see what Dr. Google says. And the next thing you know, you think you got bubonic plague. So it would be nice if AI would kind of like reduce the level of stress and just tell me that.
We live that in my house. My wife has her degree from the Google School of Medicine. Mm-hmm.
And whatever you have is infinitely worse than whatever they have. So there you go.
I just stop. I can't. But in any event, I do think, and look, let's not stop at healthcare. Another area where there's a vast lack of services, especially for lower socioeconomic classes, legal. There is no reason AI. As a matter of fact, my son, Landon, up in Boston, is graduating Suffolk University Law School, entering the job market. He's worked in the legal technology lab at his school for the last 2-3 years now, creating chatbots to help people navigate. You need to get child support. You're being evicted. This sort of non-criminal stuff. Because criminal, in most courts, you still get appointed a real lawyer. But for, 75% of the people in housing court don't have a lawyer, of the defendants. The landlords always have lawyers, it seems. And so this is another area where AI can make a huge difference, right? And, I don't think the world is going to cry that some lawyers and doctors may make some less money because AI, though they'll wind up making money off
I think
it anyway.
I think it might make those professions easier for the people who are in it. They probably feel overwhelmed. I mean, there's just a lack of doctors, optometrists, lawyers, and this kind of fills that breach, so to speak. And and we don't have to do life or death medical or legal cases. We can just do some basic things that for now are really difficult to achieve. I mean, it's like going to the DMV, right? To get something done, to go to your doctor.
Yeah, we had to drive out of town to go to the DMV because it was going to be 2 weeks to get into our DMV here. So we drove an hour away to a small town and got in there right away.
Well, and I'll tell you, when you do go to the doctor, they're so rushed that, that's a lovely 15 minutes they spent with you that you spent 4 hours in the waiting room for, right?
So I'm blessed. So my doctor loves well, I have a personal relationship with my primary doctor. I'm exactly the opposite. I usually spend 10-15 minutes in the waiting room and a half hour, 45 minutes with the doctor. Very little of which is talking about my health, unfortunately. But we're at a similar stage in life, Mike, to use your words, and we just talk about life. And that an AI couldn't do, right? No, but an AI couldn't do that, right? And that I would be sad. But that's the exception, not the rule. And I think, again, go outside the U.S., go outside Western Europe where, or any of the socialized medicine where most people have coverage. And my God, what a difference maker this could be. What a difference maker this could be.
The farther you got to travel, the less likely you're going to do something.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, right? So that's ending it on a bright note. What a wonderful Wednesday. We have a full Techstrong TV lineup following this, so check that out. Amanda, Mike, John, thanks for joining us. Hey, just a reminder, as I mentioned, Mike and I are at KubeCon next week, along with Mitchell Ashley, and we will be doing some Techstrong gangs there next week. There might be a few days where Mike and I aren't on, or maybe I'll be in our hotel room in jolly old England, but we'll be here. But the show will go on. And so stay tuned for that. But we still have 2 more great days of the gang here this week in person. For now, though, this is Alan Schimmel. Stay tuned for Techstrong TV, everyone. Have a great day. We're out of here.